Welcome to the Uplift, where we are uplifting our lives, uplifting each other, and uplifting our communities together. Thank you for joining myself, Sai Herrera, and Tessa Savala here, two women, two attorneys, doing it our way, and inviting you here each week to share in on the stories, advice, and life lessons we've picked up along our journeys that keep us uplifted, and that will hopefully do the very same thing for you. Now buckle in and let's get ready to be uplifted.
Good morning, or good day, or good evening, depending when you're listening. As always, I am Tessa, and I am joined by the amazing, accomplished, nationally award-winning Sai. Soon it's going to be
You
international
threw that in there.
award-winning Sai. I did. I had to.
I love it. Well, thank you, Tessa. It's always an honor, a privilege, a blessing to be with you in any way. So excited to be here today.
I shared with you earlier a Instagram post, I think from Jay Shetty. So I want to make sure he has, we're not just like stealing his ideas, because I thought he raised a really fascinating theory about how we think and how much of it is negative. And what he said was, he says we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. 80% of them are negative. Oh my word, that's a lot. But get this, he also says 80% of those thoughts are repetitive. So repetitive negative thoughts, like let's hammer those into ourselves. Like, this does not sound like a good idea.
No.
And his advice was you can control your first and last thoughts. So start with a good thought and end with a good thought every day. And I'm like, that makes sense. But also, oh my word, that's a lot of thoughts and a lot of really nasty things we're saying to ourselves. Why are we doing this?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things too about that is, it's almost like pointing out a natural phenomenon of, something maybe we can't control all the things. What can we control? First of all, I love that. And I always kind of break it down that way for folks when we're talking about life in general. It's like, well, we can't control other people. What can we control?
Exactly.
It's like you could drive yourself bananas just thinking about what you can control and trying to pour so much energy into the things and the spaces that you cannot control actually, which is, literally an impossible task. It's completely fruitless. So I love this, first of all, just as a utilitarian, just as the most practical thing. What can we do? Here's the thing that's real. What can we do about it? And how can we have some impact? And how can we have a little bit of control? Or how can we have any, autonomy here? How can we have any agency here? So I love that, first off. Second off, I think, it's smart. It's smart in its tactic in terms of here are the things that you can control. The first thing in the morning you can control. The second thing or the last thing you can control. I love that. And I would add to that, I think that our natural state, just because something naturally occurs, doesn't mean that we have no control. It's just we're observing that this is something that we tend to do. This is something that, occurs without us even thinking about it. But I would also add, like, just the fact that he's saying, well, you could do this in the morning, you could do this first thing in the morning, last thing at night. That shows that we actually do have some agency, ability, and power in the situation. And he's giving us, a practical tip of when we can have these opportunities. But I would add also that just having the awareness, first of all, that this is happening, major, right? Go us. Like, where the fact that you can go through life and you can start to notice, oh, I'm having this repetitive negative thought and it's coming up over and over again. The fact that you actually stop and pay attention to that and then choose what to do with it is so important. It's so major. It's such an amazing like progression versus just letting that negative thought rule you and rule your emotional state without you even, realizing, first of all, that it's there, and second of all, that you could have some agency and do something about it.
Do you know what this reminds me of? All of a sudden, this scenario popped in my head. I think we've all been in meetings with multiple people, like a group setting, and somebody who is an other says, I hope this is going to make sense. And then explains a
Mm.
really brilliant idea and then follows up with, did that make sense? And for me, that's always like the self doubt of like, I'm not doing a good enough job. I'm not explaining this well enough. I need to belittle my thought. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
I want us all and all of us who are others to stop and just pretend that we have the confidence of an average white man. Apologies to average white men, but you have an innate sense of confidence that a lot of us do not have.
We're just trying to get on your level.
Right. We're not taking anything away from you.
No, absolutely. I 100% because you have this opportunity in both of those moments actually.
Hmm.
Even if you don't feel confident, because we're talking literally about feeling some kind of negative thing or thinking some
Yeah.
negative thing, even if you don't feel it, naturally, innately, like just immediately, you have the opportunity to notice and then decide how you want to handle that, how you want to use your emotional state in your favor, right? I think so many times we believe that we are kind of like a victim of life in a way. Like we are just going through life and life is throwing us different things, different circumstances, different um, experiences. And, we're just at the mercy of life in a way. And our emotional state just kind of follows, right? And I think that's one of the huge things that meditation and reflection brings. It's one of the huge things that just like somewhere in some philosophy, finding empowerment really changes is that you actually have some agency. It's one of the very few things actually that we can control in life. We can't control our emotions in terms of like, something tragic happens and we feel happy. No, like we can't do that. But we do have opportunities to move ourselves through. We have the opportunity to choose to process or just, live in that forever. We have the option, the choice to move forward, to move through. Um, we have the option of, taking different perspectives and trying them on and seeing how that makes us feel. Like, we have so many more opportunities than just, the immediate, natural kind of lizard brain, whatever happens, happens, and we feel it for the rest of the time, or forever how long it makes us feel that. So yeah, this brings up a lot for me in that term of like just awareness is so important, and the fact that you're bringing this statistic is also like very enlightening in terms of just noticing that. Like, I think everybody that hears that could walk through their day and just start noticing emotions and thinking, oh, yeah, there's another negative one. And have I thought about that one before? Yeah, I think about that pretty often, pretty frequently, right? And then what do you do with it from there? So I think just the noticing is the first step. And even in your example of people doubting themselves in the moment, I think people don't even notice that they're saying those
Yep.
things. They're just, I mean, it's just so like, what's the word? Like, it's just like so like habitual at this point, right? Like it's just automatic. It's another automatic habit. So and you're also that's learned behavior, by the way, right? It's like I've done that before and I learned that behavior from hearing somebody else do it and thinking like, oh, I don't know, when they do it, it seems like, and this is all subconscious, by the way, but like they're doing it, and I'm thinking, oh, like people are receiving that a little bit
Yeah.
better, and like maybe like that comes off less aggressive. But of course, we're being taught that being aggressive as a woman is bad. Like people to respond poorly to this or that, and so it's fascinating to me that it's all like social learning, social pressure, social practice. And so I really think that the noticing is huge because maybe you don't even want to do that. Maybe you want to be direct and you're doing that, which is very indirect and very, almost apologetic and seeking affirmation. Like, do you know you're even doing that? And are you choosing to do that? Or is it now just a habit? So I think the noticing is very, very important first and
I think you
foremost.
raise a really interesting point, And I think all of the recovering perfectionists out there in the world, myself
Mhm.
included, need to
Mhm.
realize that these negative thoughts were most likely not created by you, but
Right.
they were imposed upon you because of things that
Mm.
society has done for generations to bring down
Mhm.
people who are women, others in any shape, way, or form.
Who are too powerful
Yep,
and present a
yep,
threat.
yep, absolutely. Right? Like it makes me think of that meme where a uh, mother's listening to her child, a girl, young girl, try on a pair of jeans. The jeans are the jeans do not fit well, and
Mhm.
the young
Mhm.
girl's response is, "I am too powerful for these jeans."
Ah,
Right?
I
And I
love
thought,
that.
yes, that is exactly how we should be thinking until
Love
because
it.
other society will come in there and crush us and make it try to
Mhm.
force us to think somewhere else. But that's how those negative thoughts got in there. It
Mm.
wasn't because you were like,
Mm.
"Oh, I just loathe myself." It is
Mhm.
just like
No,
this
you don't,
constant
yeah.
trickle of stuff that we don't even know is happening to us. Like, think of just the media as you were growing up, like images of women or, the bathroom signs that were so gender phobic almost in a way for centuries, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah,
much messaging that gets into our brains.
and it's so, subconscious. We talk
Yep.
about it a lot in terms of socialization. And, yesterday we were watching some movie. Oh, Barbie, and it's full of like, questioning of, gender and gender equality and gender, roles and all of that. And you saw scene the boys cheerleading, and she goes, "Why are the boys cheerleading? The girls are supposed to be cheerleading." And I was like, "I love this movie." The movie, first of all, it's just doing this, and making this a thing. And I'm like, great, now we get to talk about this. This is cool. But I mean, it just shows like you can't, it's in the water. It is the water. It's not, like no one ever told her that. I've never told her that, of course, but that's all that she's apparently been exposed to. And so we have to fix that. But also, it's just, wow, it's amazing, right? That like you don't even know how much you're getting every day, especially as a child, but even as an adult, like we cannot, like, let's not be fooled. Like, this is not just something that's happening as when
Hmm.
you're young and impressionable. Our brains, I love when people start talking about the human brain, the adult brain, and the adult experience is kind of like you just have to start your like parenting yourself. I was thinking about this yesterday because I'm like, have we changed actually very much, or are we just like now on our own? Because I'm like,
That is such a great expression, parenting ourselves. Because think about it. I would
Mhm.
bet you most of us are parents who made mistakes because all parents
Yes.
make mistakes.
Mhm.
But I think especially our generation and older parents perhaps were not aware of all the traumatic impacts that they could have.
Mm.
Try to find
Mhm.
the most polite way to say this stuff,
That was
right?
a good one, yeah.
And we need to like reparent ourselves almost
Yes, absolutely, and
in
I
a way
mean,
that was loving and supportive because most of us
yeah,
probably didn't get that kind of stuff.
and people go to, like, let's talk to our inner child or what have you, which I love that idea too, but I also love the idea that, like, we are still that person, right? Like, I think
Hmm.
we almost forget that, like, we didn't just, like, transform into an entirely different person now, like, we're just older,
Yeah.
we still have the same brain experience, emotional body, like physical body, obviously, like all of these things are still there. And I really relate to that because for me, it's like I'm still learning how to take care of myself. And that's actually another way to think about the entire self-care movement. If you just like just it's just coming to me right now. Like everybody's obsessed with self-care and trying to figure out how do we take care of ourselves. And I would posit that the reason why this is such a thing is because we're realizing our parents didn't know how to take care of us all the way, right? In the way that
Yep.
we really needed for us to be extremely healthy, extremely well, like the optimal health and wellness that we all deserve. Like they didn't know how, and that's not their fault. I'm not, I'm not shaming them. I'm just saying I think that the self-care movement is actually just kind of a recognition of us understanding, oh, somebody's got to do it because it hasn't been done yet. And now we are like literally trying to learn how to parent or care for ourselves in a way that we've never had before. And I just relate to that so deeply because I feel like, even in the simplest things, I have such a weird relationship with food. I have such a struggle like just eating regularly. And I'm just realizing, or I guess I realized it for a long time, but, you know, that wasn't the high point of my childhood. That wasn't like a strong area in my childhood of like eating right and eating well and eating often and eating enough, and so it makes
Mm,
sense, it makes a lot of sense, but thinking about it in terms of like, oh, this is me trying to learn how to take care of myself and my family and other people in my life, like it's just it's just a continuation of that, and I think the more that we can, again, notice where all of this is coming from, the more empowered we actually are. Like, I feel a little more empowered knowing, like, "Oh, this is just something I was not taught, and it's something I can learn, and it's something that I need to, if it's important to me, decide and commit to learning and putting into practice, and I'm doing it for me, and I'm doing it for everyone, around me and all of that as well, but, like, me first." And she was saying that is like I had to whisper it, "Me first,"
Isn't
because
that sad though, that we
it's so
have to
sad.
whisper
Yeah,
it
I'm not
and
allowed to
that
say
we
that. Yeah.
feel bad
Mhm.
about putting
Mhm.
ourselves first? We should
Mhm.
not. Because if you
No.
think about it, as you pointed out, by fixing ourselves, we're fixing the people around us.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
it's almost as though we're
Mhm.
being the highest and best citizens of Earth by fixing ourselves because we all know that we can all act out when we're a little broken at times. And that's okay. And that happens. But the more work we do on ourselves, the fewer times those are. And I think that makes the whole world better, right? Like you're not having
Mhm.
people honk at you because you're going the speed limit or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and we talked about that before in terms of like, we might need an excuse to like take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And we have all of these wonderful reasons why we should do it. I almost also think like as a practice, it might be like it's so little, it's so funny, like this little thing just triggered this for me, but like just saying that and realizing that I have an aversion to being like me first is like a strange thing for me. Um,
Yeah.
I, I also think like it would be really powerful to just like actually do something that's ridiculously selfish. Like, and I say
Oh, like
ridiculously
what?
selfish. I
Let's
don't
hear.
know. I have no idea. I'm just going down this path. But wouldn't it be wonderful if we all got into a habit of not needing an excuse to take care of somebody else?
Yep.
Or like not doing something for ourselves that's going to benefit society. Like literally just doing something that is entirely for us, like literally can't be. This is almost like I was obsessed with philosophy in college, so it makes me think about altruism and how like people would define altruism and be like it doesn't exist because you're always going to get some kind of benefit, blah 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 blah. It's so funny to me that that was like a big, like such a big focus in philosophy because now I'm like fuck altruism, like what about me actually? Like why can't I just want something for me? And it's funny because like I've been actually down this path for a little while. I'm reading a book called Pleasure Activism, which is phenomenal and I highly suggest it. But this author was really kind of in the same mindset that I've been in for a little bit, where I've thought I need to enter into my pleasure. I've talked about it before, and I'm like, and
I
and
love this.
it's not because, it's not because of anything that somebody else might think. It's because I struggle with it actually. I struggle with taking, pleasure in my life just for me. And I mean, I always thought that I was good at this actually. Like I always, thought like, oh, I'm gonna, I want to do trips and I want to do food and, all of the things. And I do, and I love having fun. I love culture. I love music, I love dancing, I love all of these things that are like celebrating life, but I consciously was like, I am entering into my pleasure era. But I did that because I had to keep reminding myself. It's becoming and it has been becoming for a long time harder and harder to focus on and prioritize pleasure in my life. And so I say it out loud and I hold myself accountable by letting other people know that that's my thing, and I'm on a board and they asked me to say a word for the year. And, that was a very awkward moment for me because I'm like, this is a board. This is very professional type of situation. I love the people on that board though, and we have a special relationship. But even then I was like, I should not say that word. I should say like,
No, no,
optimism or I don't know what the hell. I'm
no.
like, I should say something else. And I was just like, I don't know. I was like, my word is pleasure because I'm in my pleasure era and I'm not ready to leave yet. And that's it. Like, I don't know what else to say. That's just where I am. And they took that and they embraced me. They're the most wonderful people. And we use that word actually throughout all of our meetings to help guide us and for us to reflect on it. And I love them. It's a mental health actual organization, so we practice what we speak, right? And so I'm happy that I said it there. I'm happy that I'm still continuing that in the four. Um, but even still, I think I even in this moment, I feel challenged, like, beyond having this kind of, like, centering of pleasure in my life and trying to remember, like, "Oh, enjoy the food that you're eating right now." Like, enjoy, just doing nothing. Don't feel ashamed for that. Feel joy for that, right? Like, find pleasure is good. All of these things, like I'm telling myself. Still, also, it makes me challenged in this moment to remember that I don't have to justify all that pleasure in
Yeah,
these terms. You know what I mean? Like, that's the other part about pleasure is like women especially it's been beaten into us that pleasure is not for us, that we
it's
are
just like that
serving
expression,
others' pleasure, right?
guilty pleasure. Oh,
Guilty pleasure, sinful this and that. Like,
oh,
I mean, literally, all of that comes from a very real place. It comes from, I mean, literally millennia or at least centuries of oppression, like literal, actual, like, and not to say that any other oppression is not real, but what I'm saying is that there's been, just hundreds of years of effort, of oppression that has led to a socialization ritual in our current society that we are now doing it to one another. We're doing it to our children, right? We're doing it
mhm,
to ourselves. It's self oppression. It's carried
mhm.
on oppression through socialization now. It's group pressure. And it's making me think of cults because, I just obsessed with cults, but it's making me think about how, this, it's not an accident, is what I'm trying to say. All of this is coming from a very intentional place, but it's not coming from us. It's not like Tessa didn't originate this. I didn't originate this. It's not an evil plan that we thought of or any one of us as individuals thought of. It's that it's been such a long history and chain of oppression that we are carrying on. And the only way to undo it is to know it's there, first of all, right? To recognize it and see it and then consciously commit to undoing it and then carry a practice of undoing it every day. And that's why like my pleasure era is so important to me because I have to remind myself every day because society loves to take all of my effort and energy of service. They love that. And they praise me for it and and encourage me to do more of it and it's not that that's a bad thing. It's just that you have to also have your priorities for you back to the idea of how we take care of ourselves, right? And then maybe it's the most important thing is learning how to take care of ourselves actually, right? Because if our parents didn't know how to take care of us, it's probably because they didn't know how to take care of themselves. They didn't know how to, no one knew how to take care of them. And we can break that chain actually by learning and by figuring that out. And so it's another commitment that we could make. And this theme that you brought up of the 80 negative thoughts a day, I'm sorry,
80,000, no,
80%,
80%.
80,000
Yeah,
negative thoughts, 60% of the thoughts. I can't remember all the statistics. I just know it's a lot.
a
This
ton.
majority of negative thoughts that are flooding us every day. What are we going to do with it? What is our responsibility to ourselves? How do we love and care for ourselves with this onslaught of negative thought? And so it all kind of comes back to care, right? Care and love. How are we learning to do that for ourselves? And I think, The very first step again is understanding that it's there. So thank you for bringing that here today. And then how are we going to move from seeing it to basically overcoming it?
You brought up so many thoughts of culture in your explanation of how we have been socialized not to accept, appreciate, welcome
Mm,
pleasure in the
mm,
United States. Like
mhm.
every time that I catch myself in it, I'm like, I have to go home, like back to Europe because, you know, both of my birth country and my home cultural country build their systems around pleasure
Mm,
in that,
mm,
in Sweden, we stop and we fika all the time,
mhm,
like 3 times a
mhm,
day, and it is that moment to stop with all the chaos, stop with all the negative thoughts, sit down with a cup of coffee, sit down with a pastry, and just enjoy the moment and enjoy a good conversation if you're with somebody else and PKing. And those moments don't happen here. Or if you're meeting a friend for lunch, you often talk about work, 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 and there's no like, maybe it's pleasure, your work, but at the same time, like, we're not well enough rounded to talk about the pleasure we have in our daily life. Or if you are, you phrase it as guilty pleasure, or you don't talk about your
mhm.
pleasure seeking because people feel you feel like it's a bad idea, or you become like this. I hate this. I do not like this word, hedonist, because I think
Oh, I
the
embrace that word. I actually like I was halfway between saying my hedonist era and my pleasure era. So
oh, good. Well, I
sometimes
like
I
that
say
you
I'm just going pure hedonist. I just say it sometimes.
and for me, that word has so many like puritanical connotations that it's like
Mhm.
bad when I'm like,
And that's the only
no.
context we have to speak
Yeah,
about
and that's
this, by the
awful
way.
because
That's the only language we have.
isn't that horrible? Because it should just be like
Horrible.
we are enjoying life, or that it's,
Mhm.
we had, especially if you were a child of the 90s, you or the 80s, you learned that like dairy was bad and all dairy should be non-fat. When eat, bad health advice, one, two. I'm like, when did people start saying like you can't have a piece of cheese?
I
Says
don't
the
know.
European, I get that, but
I
still.
know. But I mean, what's crazy though is like people will be like, "Oh, but we should go to Europe and we should just enjoy all of this amazing stuff." But that just shows you the US mentality. Like I was gonna say, you
Yes.
you brought up something when you were talking about how we how we talk about pleasure and how we like basically our relationship to pleasure is what you're touching on, right?
Mhm.
And I feel like and my observations give to me that in the US pleasure is this weird, confined thing in a box that only certain people can access, and only at certain times is it appropriate. Like it's full of like etiquette, bullshit rules, right? And like
Ugh.
that's why I said this is my pleasure era. I want to have pleasure all the time. And that's a radical thing. Like, I mean, when I tell people that, I definitely get interesting looks. And I mean, I've gotten comfortable with it, but it just says even more for me that this is who we are as a culture, as a society, and this is what the silent socialization is that pleasure is supposed to be this little thing in a little box that's very private and that you only open in certain times and you can only open it in certain ways and you can open it, in with certain people, right? Like there's so many fucking rules, it's bananas, right?
Ugh.
It's just ridiculous. And so my point being though is one of those rules is like you can have pleasure, but only in this way. You can have pleasure, like you can enjoy cheese, Tessa, but you're not supposed to eat cheese all the time in your daily life. You're not supposed to have that pleasure all the
And it can only be
time.
certain types of
It can only be
cheese.
certain types of cheese, and it can only be kind of in certain like even think of like even literally like events. I went to an event yesterday, and they had a charcuterie, and they had all kinds of cheese. And nobody's judging me for eating this cheese, but why? Because we're at a special occasion. If I'm like
Oh,
sitting on the couch, eating, like these cubes of cheese at home and watching a movie, that's literally what they put in movies as like the sad girl, the sad fat girl sitting on the couch, like eating, dairy. Like that is literally a
okay.
trope that they put out there. And
This
so
makes me
that's,
want to F-bomb.
I
Fuck
know it.
Hollywood. 'Cause
And fuck
wow.
Hollywood all the way. I mean, because that is, I mean, and the other really, really powerful thing about that is it's all part of the socialization machine that we experience as little girls and boys and little children and adults as big girls and boys and adults with a mind that is coming through childhood and through this era in our lives. No matter how old you are still being socialized. I am still being socialized, not to mention social media that can go the same route as Hollywood. All of this is telling us little secret messages every day. It's a silent socialization. It tells us this is who you're supposed to be and this is who you're not supposed to be. This is what's desirable. This is what's not desirable. This is, what society likes. This is not what society likes. You are good. You are bad. You are worthy. You are unworthy. If you are doing these things, looking this way or being this way, acting this way, experiencing pleasures in these ways, like all of that are silent messages that are happening all the time, every day. It's an onslaught. So, like, those thousands and thousands and thousands of negative thoughts that we have, I would say those are coming from nowhere. Like, Jay Shetty is saying these are negative thoughts that just happen. And I'm sure, he would say a lot more. And you're saying, these are things that or he and you are saying these are things that are repetitive. Where are they coming from? I would say so much of it is coming, yes, like you said, from childhood and the messaging that we got from people in our lives. But I've always argued, being a child of the 90s, that so much of this messaging is not from the people we love, Tessa. It's not even that anymore. I mean, it is enforced by them. They are the
Yep.
police. They are the police of this socialization, right? But the messaging itself, they don't need to say shit, frankly. They don't need to
Mhm.
say one word. And honestly, when they try to, the messaging is so strong from media and
Yep.
from literally all of the forms of media that we've been absorbing since the TV was invented, since the radio was invented, frankly, since mass communication was invented, we have been getting an onslaught. Why do you think we are having so many negative thoughts? I
Yep.
mean, frankly, how are we even having that many thoughts, period?
Yeah.
Period, like, just like straight, like, number of that sheer number of thoughts to me is frightening. It's frightening
Oh, yeah.
to even know that, because I, I know that I'm not alone. I know I have so many thoughts in a day, because when I start to decompress with somebody and I start to talk to somebody and process some of my thoughts, this could be like at lunch. Like, it's only half a day through and I can start talking about all the thoughts that I've had and I was like, wow, that was just before I left the house. And that's
Yeah.
wildly disturbing to me, frankly. And I don't know if, I'm not trying to judge anybody or anything, but to me, it feels frightening, because I'm like, at what pace is my mind even going? And frankly, I would love nothing more than to have less thoughts. I would love nothing more than to have more, like, pleasure in my thinking process, actually, like more intention, more slowness, right? Like, just like
Mhm.
a slower, like, more, I almost think of like more like a more loving, intimate relationship with my thoughts. I would love that, because right now it's very hardcore and it's very fast, and it's a whole lot of thoughts, and it's a lot. And that does something to your body. It's
Yeah.
tension, it's stress, it's even if they're good, exciting thoughts, just think about it's mania, really, is what it is, right? Like, if we call it what it is, it's like it's this fast-paced, wild thing. And frankly, my personal thought about this is we're just getting too much. We're just getting a lot, and I don't think that our brains are built for this, you
Oh,
know?
they're
I think
not.
I
No.
think this is why we long for I mean, I don't know about obviously not everybody, but there's always been, like, these movements that come up in society, like, I always think about the hippies of the '60s. I'm always thinking about cults because I was just at an executive retreat and one of my colleagues told me one of his family members is in a cult, like it's a legit cult. But the way he
That's frightening.
described it, it is. But I mean, it's not as uncommon as you would think, and that's what's really amazing. But one of the things that he said, first of all, he named the cult, and I'm like, I think it's amazing that we don't know that there are so many cults that exist, period. Like we don't,
True.
like that's why it always fascinates me because people almost think now it's kind of like the serial killer thing. We're always looking back like, oh, look at this cult that used to be and now it had a downfall and now it doesn't exist. But people don't realize like, no, it's still happening. We're just not talking
Yeah.
about it yet. Like nobody's made a story and a documentary about it yet. And
Yeah.
so he brought up the name of the cult, and I'm like, just knowing the name of this cult is just, fascinating to hear a name of a cult that's active right now, right? And then to know somebody who knows somebody that's in the cult, amazing. But when he described what the cult was, that's what really killed me because he's like, this cult was like, hey, this guy was having a hard time in life. He wasn't doing great. He was struggling. He lost his relationships. He lost a lot of stuff in his life. And they're like, hey, come to our community. You can live, in this commune. Basically, like all you have to do is, work to help feed and sustain everybody here, including yourself. And that's it. Like it's a simple life. That's the end of it. And I was like, sadly, sir, like that does not sound bad. I'm like,
I thought I was just thinking, but
I'm
also
like, is that a
how
cult or is
sad
that
that
like my future? I don't know.
but how sad is that we have this culture that thinks that having a simple life is
Mhm. Mhm.
a bad thing
Exactly.
or that's
Exactly.
yeah.
I'm like,
Oh.
of course they're getting people. I'm like, of course
Yeah.
they're. I mean, that's a winning argument.
Sign
Like,
me up.
I'm like, and they're like, and he doesn't want to leave. He's happy. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I want to see the brochure. Like, I'm slightly interested. I just find it so funny because, you know, um, the first of all, the fact that, like there could be a whole conversation on what's considered a cult and what's not and how we weaponize that to begin with. Like that could be a whole conversation in itself. I'm not pro
Mhm.
cult. I really think that, one of the biggest issues with cults for me, one of the signs of whether or not something is a cult is whether or not you're taking away somebody's autonomy, right? Like that to
Yeah.
me, like is very precious to me and important to me. And I think that's one of the sad things that you see in cults is like people take other people's autonomy away and then they get them where they want to take advantage of them,
Yeah.
right? And so, if he's not being taken advantage of, like, that's I wonder whether or not this a cult, but the fact that I think there's family isolation in this case and things that are signs of cults. So I understand. But my point being is like the fact that he was drawn to this life, like you said, to this just to a simple life. The fact that it had so much appeal, like that was so fascinating to me because it again just gives us the juxtaposition of what we live with in modern society and how complex and erratic and manic it really is and what it puts us through versus the like this and not to oversell it, like this could truly be like one of those things where you're like, well, I would just want the opposite, which I think is what it is. It's like a psychological effect. Well, I just want the opposite then. I want it to be the simple life. Then this is why people like engage in nostalgia so much and sometimes wrongfully so, or sometimes, inaccurately so, right? Where they're like, oh, could we just go back, to the simple things? Like, and
I'm like, can
I'm
we just have a
guilty.
European lifestyle, right? Because
Yes.
they're
Yes.
not rat
Well, you're
racing it. They're just like,
exactly
I want to
the
enjoy my
balance.
breakfast. When I
The
show up for
balance.
work, I
Yeah.
show up for work. That type of thing. Like, I mean, oh,
And I think
the
you're
United
further
States
along
sometimes.
on the right track because I mean I think the same thing and I over nostalgize because I don't even know what life was like when I think like, oh, maybe it needs to be like tribal life again. Like maybe that was wonderful. But it's
Yeah.
really just this idea of escapism, right? We're like that just is a sign. So if you're feeling that, like if that comes to your mind a lot where you're just like, oh, I wish I could go to this far off place or this far off time or this whole different society. It's because you're feeling, you're feeling really
Isn't it
distant
kind of
from yours, you know?
isn't it kind of sad though that we have to call it escapism
Mhm.
and really we just kind of peel away the layers of crap that's been forced upon us that we did not sign
Mhm.
up for, but has been placed upon us by society, and we can't figure out how to remove it because we have to
Yeah,
fight our way through it because the messaging is just constant and
constant. Yeah.
unrelenting. You know,
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
I love your pleasure lifestyle, and I have adapted it for me because trying to remove the like negativity that can be associated with that word. And I've decided that I'm just
Yes.
romanticizing my lifestyle, right? Which I think builds
Mm.
in the pleasure. But then I got this
Mhm.
response from somebody who's like, well, that seems rather rosy glasses and a little too optimistic. I'm like, well, what the F is wrong with that, right? Like, what the F is wrong with seeing the good in people? What the F is wrong with
Mhm.
lifting people up? Because
Mhm.
the more we talk and the more we talk to others, I realize that this is really a rebellion because
Absolutely.
there's so many more of them out there saying, no, you don't want to have pleasure. No, you don't want to have a
And
romantic
that is
lifestyle.
socialization too. Like that person
Oh,
that said that to you is another cop. They're a
yeah.
cop. Like they're literally enforcing the socialization. They don't even know it. They're working for free. They're working for free for the oppressors, period. Like and I have seen it also in that way, just like you're saying, as a rebellion, I've been seeing it as this is me rejecting oppression. This is me saying, hell no. I've been
Yeah.
assimilating all of my fucking life and I'm not going to
Hmm.
do it anymore. I'm not going to do it for the pleasure of the oppressors because that's
Yep.
actually what it is. If you are, like if somebody says, well, you're being too optimistic, that sounds too optimistic and rosy eyed glasses and all of that. Well, first of all, where the fuck did all of that come from?
Right.
Why is that even your reference, right? Like where did you get that and why are you using it against me as a weapon now, right? Like where
Yeah.
is that coming? Do you even know your history of where that came from or why you're saying that? Because
Hmm.
all of those are actual tools to literally get you in line, Tessa. Like get you back in line. As a
Oh,
woman, you
my
need to be
favorites
over
to be
here.
controlled. Yay.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's literally what it is. Like, why did this person even offer that to you? Did you ask for that feedback? I'm sure you did
Oh,
not.
no.
I'm sure
No, of
you did
course
not.
not.
And so, sometimes that's another tool I've been using if I haven't shared it. I've just been letting people know, like, yeah, I'm not receiving feedback at this time.
Oh, I love that line.
So,
All this is like brought up memories of how many like dinners I had working in
mhm,
politics with,
mhm,
you know, going to dinner in a professional setting with men who are decades older than me, and the first words of their mouth are always, it always fascinates me that you dress so femininely and still are like a lawyer and work in politics. I'm like,
mm-mm. Oh
what
God,
the what is
gag.
wrong with you? Why have you assumed that people one, that people can't dress femininely? Two, why is that associated with something negative? Because it shouldn't be.
Mm.
What is wrong with you? I mean, I don't say that. I regret that now. And I have started to say these things. But, you know,
That is so highly I mean, it's so I wanted to say
offensive.
it's offensive, like, period, like, it is offensive, and it's wildly fascinating too, first of all, and I think we've talked about this, but, like, just being curious about the fact that, like, people feel first of all,
The need to
the
say that.
the need to like, literally, like, why do you feel the need to share this? Second of all,
Right.
that this is what is in your head, and
Right.
thirdly, that you feel empowered and emboldened that there's no reason why you shouldn't say this. Like, that didn't even fucking occur to you to not say this out loud. Like, even if you
Yeah.
have like, I mean, we all have terrible thoughts, and we all have terribly
But we
offensive
don't
thoughts
say
that
them
come to our head,
all.
and we don't say them. Like, you don't say that out loud. Like, what kind of socialization are these, white men or people of privilege in general, like what kind of socialization are they getting where they think
Hmm.
that this is okay to say? And I think that and I think honestly this is what's really important for us is that just like you said, you wish you had said something back then and you would say something now. That shows your growth and it also shows our trajectory as a people of oppression that we have almost I don't want to like force this as a duty, but it's almost like an opportunity now to counter those oppressive like tools of socialization by mitigating them, right? By
Yeah.
like by throwing them off. So like as soon as somebody uses a tool like that, pointing out to them and helping them see, oh, actually those are negative thoughts that are occurring to you like as a pattern of your socialization, and you should really like sit with that on why you felt compelled to say that to me even though I'm not asking you for your feedback, and why you
Yeah.
chose to use those words, and why you chose to, use tools of oppression that would get me back corrected, into this course. Like,
Hmm.
why is that important to you? Is that something that you actually want, or is that something that you're doing as a habit and a creature of socialization,
Yeah.
reflection.
Sometimes I feel as
Just
though
spread it.
I would love that, but sometimes I feel as though there are a lot of people who are not open or
But they're
have
open to giving you
limited,
feedback.
of course, but the notion that they are either open or capable of reflection
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
doesn't
Well, that's why
seem
we're
to,
doing this.
yeah,
We need more
exactly.
people to be
Hmm.
open and available for this emotional maturity, this emotional growth, this emotional journey. Like, we need everyone to be on this, and that's why we do this work, because we want folks, to have the tools that they need when they are ready to go into that journey and to go into it, empowered and tooled. And so, yeah, not everyone is open to it. But, frankly, I think that um, sometimes those interactions are the first and only time that anyone has ever been challenged that thinks like that, speaks like that, and acts like that. They've
Agreed,
never had
100%.
that and I do think it's an opportunity. Like, does that mean they're going to change radically, and should that be our expectation? Nope, definitely
No,
not. But you never know. We'll continue to be optimistic.
but
And,
yes,
if people are offering that kind of feedback, I think that, it only deserves the reciprocal feedback. And so that's all that I will offer there.
but
And
also
they can do whatever they want with that
when it
gift.
happens to me, I realize, and I am known for my like strength and perseverance in my field.
Mhm.
What are they saying to other people, right?
Mm.
Like, what
Mm.
are they saying to the younger
Mm. They probably
women
have
and
mentees and
others?
shit. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Just spreading it.
Hmm.
Just spreading it. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Right. Like
Do you think they're
all
telling
the.
people how to dress? I don't know why that one is like the most offensive to me. Like, just
I think. I think they either are directly or indirectly. Yes.
mm, mm,
Still to this day, which is just
that's frightening.
bizarre. And it's women
Mhm.
too. Like it's women
Mm.
on women.
Oh,
And
women
I'm
are
just like,
the best socializers, period. Like,
yeah.
stop. Women are the best socializers because we have a nuance, to our
Hmm.
delivery.
Hmm.
And I mean, it's just like Mean Girls. It's like, think like there's not a Mean Boys movie for a reason. Like, that's just not a like
That is a
that's just bullying. Like, that's just
very
violence,
brilliant
probably,
point.
right? And so the reason is because we're so emotionally complex. Not to take away from men. I know men can and are emotionally complex, but like literally as a socialization tool, as a socialization practice in women's groups and in circles amongst women, like, for whatever reason, like, this is just reality. Like, women have an incredibly complex and nuanced way of socializing each other. We're very
Hmm.
good at it, and it's very delicate, and it's just intricate. It's very complex. And so I believe you 100% that it's women. And I mean, and the scary thing to me is they're way more effective.
Right, and that's a
and they
good point.
and they
Like
are.
I paid more attention when the
Mhm.
weird fashion comments came from men than I did
Mhm.
when they came from women. But
Mm.
also, me being me, I was like, uh, I'm looking at your sense of style, and I much prefer mine. So no, but that is, a
But that's because
confidence
you
that
have
I,
that self-assurance. Yeah, like, that's
yeah,
something that you have core inside of you, and that's all that I want for everyone, is to
yeah,
have that
absolutely,
own sense of self, right? Like, if everyone just had their own sense of self, all of these petty ass comments wouldn't mean so much, actually. Like, the reason
absolutely.
why it bothers us so much is because we know that so many of us are hurting, and we have open wounds and unhealed trauma, that people come and they give their, you know, unwelcome, stinky ass little
Mhm.
comments
And we're
that
not
nobody
being
asked
seen.
for. We're not being seen, and then we're being hurt. We're being harmed on
Yep.
top of harm.
Mhm.
And these people who are just dropping these little comments, they don't even remember, frankly. Like
Of
that was
course
not the
not.
highlight of their day, but it can
Nope.
devastate somebody who is so harmed and hurt, and that you just like kind of, drove a knife into that wound. And so that's why we focus on it so much, I think, is to help people, first of all, understand the power of their words, right? First,
Mhm.
but also for the people who are receiving those words, to know that you
They
have so
stick.
many tools. Yeah, and they stick,
Yeah.
and that's human. First of all, like that's, there's nothing wrong with you because of that. I hate when people also put people down for being too
Oh,
sensitive.
yeah.
Like that is one of my biggest pet peeves where I'm like, okay, you want me to control my, feel like just the fact that I'm reacting to a thing in the world like that. Like that's literally the one thing you can't control. You can learn how to respond to it, over time. You can't control like your immediate response. So I
Isn't that
find
kind
that
of a
so
form of abuse
annoying.
too?
It
To,
is,
like,
it is, it is.
oppress somebody's
It's
emotions like
emotional
that?
abuse. Yeah, it's a form of
Yeah.
emotional abuse. And usually when people are like actively and like out loud trying to socialize you to be less sensitive, or telling you that you're too sensitive, that is literally a red flag that this person is trying to control, manipulate, and abuse you, because that means that they want to do whatever the fuck they want to do to you and they don't want you to say shit about it. That's what that means. So,
You
you're
know,
too sensitive means I'm going to do this and you should just take it.
do you think there could be a day where AI gives us classes that, like, pop up these warnings around people? Like, this is a sign of emotional
Warning,
abuse. This is
abuser,
yeah, this is a
narcissist,
green
stay
light. This
away.
is a red light.
That's
Like,
genius. I think we need to train an AI on healthy relationships right now. I wish that they were using it for something productive like that. That'd be great.
right?
Um,
Wouldn't it be amazing?
yeah,
Like to like
it would
have
be.
it, even if it was like popping up on your phone.
Yeah.
Warning, warning, emotional
Warning,
abuse being
warning.
occurring.
Abusive language happening. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. That would be amazing. But I think just like all technology, it has to come from the humans that are programming it, right? It has to
yeah.
come from
Hmm.
somebody who actually, well, it has to come from a society as whole that actually values that. And that's the problem, is that we don't value it now. We don't even care to teach our children the difference between abuse and healthy relationships. We do not do that. And I mean, that's not to discount the amazing work that all of these advocates are relentlessly doing in society.
Hmm.
I'm obsessed with you. I love you. Thank you for doing that work. And, you know, we haven't won that fight. We haven't won that
No,
fight yet. Society has
and
not
right,
come to that side and realization that you are correct.
and they are so correct. And right now, the loudest voice
Mhm.
are the people railing
Mhm.
against
The
that.
abusive ones.
And
the
I'm just
abusive
like,
the abusive voices are the loudest and sadly the most respected right now, it seems.
which I mean
Yeah.
shows how damaged our society is if we're just
Yeah,
listening to the abusers.
exactly. Absolutely. I always say that. I'm like, I feel like we are just in an abusive relationship, and we have been
Hmm.
since the beginning of this
Hmm.
country. And we're continuing on showing unhealthy relationship habits. When is that going to change? When are we going to therapy? Like the US needs a therapy, hardcore. It needs cognitive behavioral therapy. It needs the talk and psychoanalysis. It probably needs EMDR. Like it needs all the things.
Yep.
We need trauma therapy. We need all of the types because we have a lot of processing to do. And it makes me really sad that basically, people pointed that out with movements like Black Lives Matter, and even the Wall Street, movements that happen. Like all of those movements and so many of the history that those stand on, were really driving us in the direction of, hey, it's time for us to look at our past
Yep.
and unpack all this trauma and
Hmm.
heal. Like let's get there. Let's deal with this shit and let's get out on the other side. Let's process it.
Let's try
And
to
we can,
treat everybody with some respect and decency.
like,
Everybody.
literally just the basics. Like we're just
Yep.
trying to get to kindergarten rules, people. That's it.
Yep.
And that was swiftly, smacked down directly and fiercely, I would say. That's my
Oh, yeah.
assessment of the on the overall, and it's really, really tragic in my mind. It really is one of the big things that makes me feel really like, that's where I can get into my cynicism about this country because I'm like, it's one thing to like do a terrible, terrible thing and have a terrible, terrible history and a past of, people who aren't even alive anymore. Like that's one thing. But then as generations pass, like as generations, far, far many years later, or not that many far, I don't want to over exaggerate how many years it's been, because we still have, ongoing issues, obviously, so many ongoing issues. It's not like any of this has stopped, but just wanting to get to that point of healing and reconciling and not being perfect, but literally just like being like, can we grow? Can we grow from this? Can we actually start processing what has already happened and maybe go in a new direction? Like that was way too much. That was way too much for this country at this point in time. And that it just makes me so sad because I know that it's possible. And I'm not saying any country in the world is perfect, but and I don't even know enough about this to really speak on it, but I'll just say I know from what I've heard that there are places like Germany that have had horrible, horrible, incidences and histories of pain and oppression and death and mass murder and all of these terrible things, and they've at least looked at it and said, yeah, that was that was really bad, terrible. Let's,
Yeah.
like let's address this in some way. Has it been properly addressed? No idea. Has there been healing? I don't know. All I know is that they didn't smack down the idea of even looking at it, and that to me is like the most disheartening thing is like we have to look, we have to grapple with, we have to process or we'll never get through. There's only one way to it, and it's through it, right? So that makes me sad, but it also makes me reflect on as a society, whether we be like a smaller segment of the society or a different segment, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like if we all choose to do that work, then the country is doing it regardless. So I still like I'm still also excited and grateful that there are so many people. We're in Austin, Texas, where like DEI in Texas overall is being completely decimated, and people are losing or have already lost their jobs
Hmm.
related to that work, and centers are closing, and you can't say race. Like you literally can't say like this is an
Hmm.
opportunity for black students. You're not allowed to say that. It's not a thing anymore here. And so for me that's very like real, it's very visceral, it's very like, these are real world impacts. It's not like we were just where we were before. It's almost like we're actually being pushed even farther back on the progress. But at the same time, I will say, and there are still so many people who are going to do the work regardless if it's funded by the government, regardless if
Yep.
they have a job at an academic institution or university. They're still doing the work. Love them for it. They're amazing, and I know that their continued good work will be there and will have progressed even more by the time the majority mainstream part of this country is ready for the healing moment of our history and of our country.
Yeah. And I think, being in Austin, in the middle, in a city that is generally viewed as very liberal and very
Hmm.
open and very accepting, in the middle of this state that has a lot of views that are very, very conservative. I don't even think that's enough berries. There's like an infinite number of berries that need to occur before the word conservative is
To the
it's
seventh
I
power, yeah.
yes, it's eye opening because I think the people that are drawn to the city of Austin are those accepting, open people, the type of people who are willing to fight the
Mhm.
good fight, willing to rebel against the things that we have been taught in society to keep us down, so that everybody has what I thought was in the Constitution, of equal opportunity and protection. I mean, I don't know about you, but
Don't
my
get me
law school taught me
started.
about this type of stuff.
No, don't I've been on such a rant with that. I'm like, "Why did I even go to law school?" Because none of this shit applies. So, I want a refund. I want a refund because everything I was taught, like, apparently that was bullshit. That's not true. So, I want my money back.
But, I say kudos to everyone who is out there, what I'm gonna say, rebelling against
Mhm.
the messaging we've been getting in the United States for, since the beginning, let's just say. Since the ships arrived. Not the Viking ships, the other ships. Yeah. Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah. And it makes me think of this, C.S. Lewis quote I read this week, and it was something like, "Be weird, be random, be who you are, because you never know who's going to love the person that you're spending so much time hiding."
Mm, mm.
Right? And I feel like a lot of us tend to or have been hiding, like, my rosy colored glasses and my desire to romanticize my life and just enjoy it, seek the pleasure, right? And the idea
Mm,
that there was this notion that we had to hide it makes me sad, but makes me excited because we can do it. We can
mhm,
go out there and we can rebel and we can find the pleasure to build ourselves up, protect ourselves from everybody who's giving us all this crazy messaging. And sorry, was that ableist? All this in
incorrect,
incorrect,
oppressive.
oppressive, inaccurate, and
Mhm,
inappropriate messaging.
mhm,
And we
mhm.
are going to rebel against it, not only for our own self preservation, but for everyone's self preservation.
And you know what gives me the most hope from what you just said is that all of this, all of this messaging, all of this socialization, the silent socialization that's happening, the whole point of that is to oppress you and make sure that you never discover your power. And what you're
Hmm.
saying to me now is that, oh, you know now, you know that it's
Hmm.
there and you know the power of it and you're choosing to use it. And that gives me so much hope that we can all do the same.
And if you ever doubt it, know that we are here because we are out there to make sure we all feel it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Tessa, for another amazing conversation. As always, I'm feeling lighter and more hopeful than ever after this, and I hope you all are too. And we want to hear from you. So let us know how your journey is going, and we'll see you next time. Stay uplifted.